Alright guys, thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to the channel. Can Ryker here. Last week there was a ride that I missed on the 19th, on the Saturday, and I was just too tired and I didn't go for the morning ride, but I did make it for the afternoon session, which was a Q&A session with the owner of Extreme Propulsions here in Cartersville, and you can ask him any questions you want, and he would give his best to answer on you know, some of the issues if you're having, or any kind of general knowledge questions on the Spiders and the Rykers. So I went up to the event and you know, saw some there was a good turnout. Saw a couple of familiar faces, and you know, also made a couple of new friends up there as well. There's a group of 3 riders that I met: the Cadillac Mike, Don Juan, and Ghost. So the event was pretty nice. Extreme Propulsions is you know, they had the grill going, they had hot dogs and burgers going, so everybody was fed. That was really cool. So once the questions started, there were a few questions that I had on my mind that I asked. Number one was, this is not in any particular order, but number one question was about the brake squeaking, the brake squealing rather. And he told me that, or he mentioned that in the Q&A session, that whether it's a Spider or a Ryker, the brakes will squeal. That is just normal. That is just what they do, what it does. They said they have some product that they can put on the brake pads to help with the sound, but they said that it really, you know, the brakes are known to make a sound every time, the whistling sound, the squealing sound. And a couple of things you can do is just to wash them regularly, or you know, go to an empty parking lot and go up to speed and step on the brakes really hard to take care of that sound. So the sound is always going to be there. That was one. Number two, we asked about the reliability of the engine on the Rykers, and he mentioned that the engines were pretty solid. I mean, they're Rotax made engines. This is something that I mentioned in my 5 things I like about the motorcycle video. And the owner, DK, his name's or he goes by DK, and he mentioned that these engines are also used in their other product, especially the 900 is what he was talking about. And he said these are ironclad, no issues with these, and also mentioned the 600 is pretty good as well. There's no issues that he's come across for anyone to watch out for, and a lot of these are used in their other products. So these are tried and tested engines, so that was really good to hear, that there's nothing to worry about when it comes to the engines. Now when it comes to the transmission, I asked him what about the CVT transmission that's on the bike, how reliable is that, if they had seen any issues come up with the transmission. And first thing he said is that the transmission, he can't speak to the longevity of the transmission because the bike's only been out for 1 year, and the highest mileage Ryker that he has seen at that dealership is just at or over 12,000 miles. So I pretty much said that so far these CVT transmissions are also pretty good, pretty reliable, since they use it on their other products, albeit it's modified for the Sea-Doos, Ski-Doos, and even their Mavericks, or not the Mavericks, but rather their quads. I don't know if they're called Mavericks or not, but they're quads. And the only thing is that in those applications, they have not had very many issues at all worth mentioning, but he also did mention that in those products you don't generally tend to go longer distances. And you know, the Ryker is the first one they've put the CVT transmission in on a trike, where you're actually going to be riding, you know, longer distances. So you know, because if you have this on your Sea-Doo or Ski-Doo, it's not like, you know, you're taking a long trip somewhere, you know. So he couldn't really tell me much about the transmission. Said that there shouldn't be anything, any negatives about the transmission. It should be just fine. He told us that there was a biker who had 12,000 miles on his, and everything was running smooth. Now, he did mention that I can remember is if you have a Ryker with the CVT transmission, I mentioned that when you're twisting the throttle from a standstill, just go. You know, don't open it at crawling speed and then try to go, because what that does is it flattens out the belt that's in here, the rubber belt. That now the rubber belt, I also asked the rubber belt inside of the CVT, how solid is that, and he said that is absolutely solid. Those are made of really, really, really strengthy materials. So coming back to what he was mentioning is that when you're stopped, basically is saying do not just open the throttle lightly for crawl speed, because the clutch that pushes in kind of stays in and then flattens out the rubber belt. So what DK recommended was, instead of just opening up the throttle a little bit and going you know, going idle speed, or you know what I'm talking about is like when you're at a standstill and you're just going this speed right here, don't do that. He said just press the throttle and go. Now I'm not saying he's not saying to go ahead, press the throttle and just, you know, go ahead and burn rubber. That's not what he says. Just says just, you know, just open up the throttle and go. When you open up the throttle and go, the clutches open up. So when you just have the throttle open slightly, the clutches, you know, they're kind of pressing against it, opening up, pressing against it, so that flattens out the rubber belt. And he said that could be bad. You'll have to change the rubber belt then. What else did we ask? So there was a lot of questions about the fuel mileage and the computer that displays the fuel mileage. So he did mention that the fuel mileage showing distance to empty on the gauge cluster is purely computer calculated. It has nothing to do with the system inside. You know, there's like a sensor, like a ball in the tank that goes up and down and tells you, gives you an accurate measurement of the fuel, and that way the computer can also calculate the accurate distance to empty. But he also did mention that only goes up to you know, halfway, and there's after a while it would not go down. So it's all computer generated, computer calculated fuel mileage. So it's not going to be 100% accurate. It's going to be based upon your history of riding. So if you've been open throttle at a racetrack, previous gas tank, chances are when you fill up the distance to empty, instead of showing, for me, let's say 120 miles till empty, it might show 80 or 90. So it's not going to be accurate for everybody. That's something that he mentioned, that the distance to empty is computer calculated and is not super accurate. So a lot of times he mentioned that the best thing to do is, as soon as the light comes on, go ahead and fill up with gas all the way to the top and see how many gallons you filled in. It is a 5-gallon tank, so if let's say you fill up 4.5 gallons, you know that when the light comes on you have a half a gallon to go. So that's something that I kind of tested out already. When the light came on and everything went blank in terms of the fuel gauge and the distance to empty, I went about 7 or 8 miles before I started sweating bullets, and decided that, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and fill it up. So that's just me though. Your bike may vary. So what else did we ask? So I also asked that for rally owners, if we were able to put on the tires for better grip, the Ace tires, 900 or 600 Ace tires for better grip. So he did advise against that. The way they're set up includes the tires. They look at the tires when they're setting up. It could be anything, the suspension or whatever the programming is on the bike, is the tires are included in that programming and setup. So he told me that yes, while you can put the non-knobby tires that are in the 600 and 900 Ace onto the Rally, he would advise against it and say to just leave it with the the rally tires on there. That's what they're tuned and engineered for, and so that's that on that, because I was planning on putting the regular tires on there to get better to get better grips, and that was not recommended by DK. So what else did we ask? Also asked about putting the rear fender. I know that a couple of people on YouTube have, the Ace owners are going for the rally fenders. The rally fenders are going for the Ace fenders. So that's not going to be an issue either way. No problem whatsoever. So you can swap those rear fenders. If you have an Ace, you can put a rally one. If you have a rally, you can put an Ace one on there. It's going to be a tight fit if you have a rally with the Ace rear fender that covers the whole wheel. But it should not be an issue. They've done it many times, and not a single issue so far. So yeah, so I also asked him about the rear suspension. In the rally models, you have this adjustable rear suspensions. You have 1 through 4 settings, and I asked him that, hey, that knob just keeps on going. So if you just bring it back to 1, does that mean it's on 1 and it doesn't have to go clockwise, anti-clockwise? And DK mentioned, yeah, so as long as the arrow's on any one of those numbers, that's what that is for. Obviously 4 being, if you have a passenger and extra weight on the bike, and 1 being if you're riding solo, no luggage. So that does, because you might have noticed that it just keeps on going in a circle. So my question was that, after like 3-4 revolutions, do I have to go 3-4 revolutions back to go back to 1 or 2? And he was like, no, you can just put it on a number, whichever number, and it'll be that setting for the damping. So that's pretty much what I remember for the Ryker. I know the rest of them were spider questions. A bunch of spider questions were there as well, but for the Ryker, that's all I remember. It's a pretty simple machine, and honestly, DK had nothing negative to say about the Ryker, so that was really good and reassuring. That even though this is this is a budget Can Am product compared to the Spider, it's actually a pretty well-made product. So there's not a whole lot to worry about when it comes to the engine, transmission, and your basic functions. Now, before I end the video, there was another question that someone asked, and it was regarding the fuel pump. So somebody asked that the fuel pump is really noisy, and he did mention that it's not the same for every bike. Like, I don't have a noisy fuel pump at all, but he did mention that there isn't, this is something that Can Am is looking into. They know about the noisy fuel pumps. Not every bike has a noisy fuel pump, but they do know that there are some bikes that have them, some bikes that don't, and it actually gets noisier if you let the gas tank empty out all the way and you're running on fumes. A lot of times, like I do, it tends to get noisier then, because it's trying to get more fuel through the system, so it'll get noisy. They said that Can Am is looking into it, but they do not have a solution or a fix yet. They said that the moment they have a fix, I'm sure everybody will know that there's a fix to the noisy fuel pump. So at the moment, if you have a noisier fuel pump, there's nothing they can do about it, unfortunately. And once Can Am has a fix in place, they'll I'm sure a bulletin will go out or something, or if it's going to be a recall, they're not sure yet. So that was some of the questions that I remembered. If you were in the meeting and if I forgot something for the Ryker, please go ahead and share with us down below, comment, and if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. It was a pretty good event. If you're local to Atlanta and if this event comes up, I encourage you to go ahead and attend it. If nothing else, you'll end up meeting new people and making some new friends, so it's worth it just for that. That's about it. So if you have any other questions, let me know. If I've missed something and you were at the meeting, please let's start a conversation, share it down below. Go ahead and post it in the comments below, and hope you liked the video. Hope some of these answers you already knew, and some of them were, if you didn't know, hope this could shed some light on them. And I appreciate you guys watching. If you like the video, please hit the like button, and please hit subscribe. And until next time, folks, Be safe.